Good morning. Welcome, everyone. I'm Councillor Chris Atwell, Chair of the Planning Committee. Limited public seating has been made available. However, this meeting is also being webcast to allow the public to watch remotely if they so wish. The public seating area is not in view of the camera used to webcast this meeting. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts, and please assemble by Queen Victoria's statue in Guildhall Square. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust's fire marshal regulations, anyone who signed in at the Guildhall reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of today's meeting. May I draw everyone's attention to the fact that this meeting will be live streamed and everyone speaking via a microphone will be on camera, including those making deputations. Members of the press and public are also permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly they do not wish to be recorded. Please, can everyone use the microphones and remember to switch them off when you have finished, otherwise the camera will remain on you. If there is any voting, I'm sure there will be, please can members keep their hands raised clearly until the number of votes has been stated. Okay, let's make some introductions. Shall we start with the committee? Good morning.
Good morning, Chair. Judith Smythe, St Jude Ward.
Good morning, Judith.
Good morning, Chair. Mary Vallely, Casham and Mooring.
Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Chair. John Smith, Eastern Craneswater.
Good morning to you, John.
Good morning, Chris. Darren Sanders, Copner, North Milton, South Copner, North Milton and Baffins, and I'm now owed a tenner. I owe a tenner to someone. Thank you.
Good morning, Darren.
Raymond Dent, Copner Ward.
Just Copner? Okay. Good morning, Raymond.
Peter Candlish, Eastern Craneswater.
Good morning, Peter.
Gerald Allen Jackson, Milton Ward.
And good morning, Gerald. Shall we introduce officers to today's proceedings?
Good morning, I'm Juliet Gillan, the Principal Planning Solicitor at Portsmouth City Council.
Good morning, Juliet.
Morning, Chair. Edward Chetland-Selton, Team Leader in Development Management and the Officer for today's meeting. Thank you.
Good morning, Edward.
Good morning, Harry Burden, Planning Officer.
Good morning, Harry. Welcome. Your first planning committee.
Jane Dodino, Local Democracy Officer.
And good morning, Jane. Good morning, Councillor Shah.
Good morning. Good morning, Councillor Shah.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Just to make sure everybody knows you're here. Apologies for absence. No apologies received. Members, any declarations of interest for today's meeting? No. Thank you. And members, minutes of the previous meeting, which I don't have the page numbers. There we go. Pages 3 to 17. So pages 3 in the pack, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Dent, thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Sanders, thank you. Okay, so to today's... oh, no, can we do some introductions? People who give deputations today. I'll get the hang of this. So there's one more meeting to go in the municipal year, and I'll get the hang of it. If I could ask those people who are planning to speak today just to introduce themselves, that would be very helpful. If we could start, Councillor Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Benedict Swan, Copner and Anchorage Park Ward.
Thank you, Ben. Nice to see you.
Councillor Russell Simpson, Hilsey Ward.
Stradwick, Hilsey Ward.
Thank you. Welcome both.
I'm June Turner here. Do you want the one?
It's okay. You have the
Deputation.
container.
Giving it, yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Carrie-Anne Wells, agent for Apple Court, representing 2 items on the agenda today.
Thank you. Good morning. Just
Councillor Jason Fazackley, masquerading as a security guard, but actually here in regards to item 7, which is 115 Chichester Road, and just clarifying, I think, Councillor Sanders, that tenor was for me, was it? Thank you.
Jason, good morning. Right, okay. To today's substantive business. Now, the first substantive item is Fraser Range. Members, the application has been withdrawn. Natural England would like some more information from the applicant, so taking the decision that it won't come today, but will come back at a future date. Councillor Sanders.
Thank you, Chair. It'll be useful to clarify what particular future date you and the planning team think is realistic. I suspect 3 weeks' time may not be realistic to deal with Natural England, but that will mean it'll be in the new municipal year, which realistically puts it off until June. So I'm just grateful for any steers you may have on where you think of the future may lie for this.
I think you're right. I think we're looking at June. And Edward might.
I think it's a bit early to say at this stage, Councillor, but yes, Natural England are involved in the process, so that they will need time to consider the new information that they are expecting.
It certainly won't be the 24th of April. Okay, all right.
Chair, can I ask? We have our annual meeting, I think, on the 14th of May, when whoever will be chair and members of the committee will be decided. What is the reason for us then not to have meetings for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks? There seems to be no possible logical reason except in the minds of Democratic Services.
We might
As long
want
as we
to
avoid,
ask Democratic Services.
as long as we avoid half-term week, we should certainly crack on because we always have a big business load.
I'm happy if it's the committee's will. I'll go and speak with Democratic Services if you want to try and fit one in.
Please avoid half-term week for those of us who are active grandparents.
Okay.
Could Democratic Services just confirm what date the meeting will be in May?
And if that's the committee's view that you'd like to.
Chair, we have the 24th of April and the 29th of May in the diaries.
9th of May is yet another half-term meeting. I really think this is the thin end of the wedge for those of us who are active grandparents.
I'm happy to go.
May I, Chair? 29th of May was considered a little bit close to the full council meeting, but we can definitely look into it and review it and report back to be accommodating. We'll do our best.
So should we move that we'll have the meeting on the 21st or the 20th or 21st of May?
Well, we'll go and speak to Democratic Services. Okay. Okay, well, we'll get back to you. We'll have a look at it. Okay, right, let's get on with today's business. Edward, Elm Grove.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Right, first item on today's agenda, application at 60 Elm Grove, Southsea, for the retention of a shipping container for use as storage, along with a wooden canopy roof, an extraction system, and the construction of a 2-metre fence at the rear of the property. So shipping containers aren't necessarily deemed to be buildings in planning terms, but this one exhibits that there are 3 tests that have to be satisfied for it to become a building and therefore needing planning permission. That is its size, its permanence and its physical attachment. As you can see from the, not so much from the site plan, just jumping ahead, this is the site location on the south side of Elm Grove. The red line obviously is the planning unit. The application relates to a rear alleyway located to the rear of Elm Grove, and numbers 44 to 62 benefit from this access, as shown on this Google aerial view. Elm Grove is a busy high street. The application site is the Sourdough Bakehouse, described as a traditional English kitchen and coffee shop in use class E. The rear alleyway access services a number of commercial units and some residential units, and the application site is directly opposite Forwood Path, which is a residential dwelling. The difficult to see here, let me see if I can get the pointer to work. Yeah, so the application site, the application we're looking at is this unit here. Number 62 at the corner already has planning permission to retain that container. This is the view of the container from Wood Path. And again, this shows the container that already benefits from planning permission. I have here included some photographs taken by the case officer this morning of the container to emphasise its degree of permanence. You can see that it is in close proximity to the rear door of the building. That inside the building, it's not a great photograph, I'm afraid, but it does show fridges and a microwave plugged into a power supply which is attached to the container. And as you can see from these photographs and from the plans I showed earlier, the container is about as big as it can be sited on the plot, so satisfies the size test in that respect. That is the container as currently shown, just an ex-hire half-size shipping container. And this is as proposed with a 2-metre fence erected to give it a certain degree of screening from the public domain, and a wooden canopy roof to protect its roof. These are these for comparison. This is what's been approved at 62 Elm Grove. So essentially the main issues are the principle, whether it has its impact on the character and appearance of the area, impact on amenity, whether there are any highway implications, and there have been no objections from technical consultees. 6 objections are received, and we have a deputation from a local resident in a minute. As set out on the SMAT, the application has arisen from an enforcement investigation regarding the siting of the container, and the applicant was advised that planning permission was required, hence this application in front of you today. The planning considerations are set out in the officer report with a recommendation to grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. Jane Turner, you're here to give your deputation. You have 6 minutes to give your deputation.
Yes, I'd just like to go back on what the gentleman said, a few things that aren't correct.
Sorry, we may need you to get slightly closer to the microphone so we can all hear. There you go, that's it. Thank you.
There's just a couple of things that there has just been said that isn't actually quite right. I am June Turner, who's the owner of the access road, which is referred to here as an alleyway. It's actually a 14-foot access road, which consists of 9'6" as a drive, and the other 4'6" is a footpath, which you can see. For some reason on that photograph, they seem to have quite a lot of bins on there. It is not a bin area. It's actually a drive with a footpath for the safety of the residents of this area. Another thing is that it's actually...
sorry to interrupt you. Could we have the picture up, Edward? Sorry, that'll help members to...
Yes. It looks
to see.
Completely different there.
Okay, thank you. If you can...
That's the bird's eye view from my kitchen window, actually. And it's not 4 Woodpath, it's opposite, it's number 2 Woodpath, which is my property. There's a couple of things here that are quite wrong, but I'll just get on to say what I'd come to say. I strongly object to this very, very large container, which is quite right opposite my kitchen window. It's the first thing I look at, first thing in the morning. He did have a smaller one, which was hideous enough, but now he's got this container, which is actually bigger than his own land. It should be on. It is bigger. It veers onto another property. It takes up all the space that he has. All these shops have a hard standing behind their property where they can put a vehicle and they can put their bins. It's been there for years. I've lived in this house for 34 years. It's provided for all the shops to have their own parking space and their bins and any other bits. As you see, they're gradually, because the bins have been erected, pushing out on the footpath, which is not their property. The drive has been damaged considerably because of the very bad way. You can see how unsanitary it is. This is in a residential area, which you're not seeing the other side of it. It's all houses and a quiet road. So taking up all his space, he's got absolutely no chance of parking. He's actually got that there knowing that he's got no space for the vans when they come to deliver, so he has to obstruct the drive. So there are 18 people with cars in this little area. So anyone that comes down, if he has a delivery or he is loading up his vans to take his goods, he just parks in the drive. So therefore, we can't just simply get in our car and go. We have to, this has been going on more and more. There is just no room for him to put all these bins, which are now on the footpath. They eventually, during the week, get absolutely filled up. So the lids are open. We have big seagulls and vermin dragging out all the rubbish. It's never cleared up. It's just this mess that you can see here. I've got the list of the amount of vehicles that come down. There's about 17 to 18 vehicles. At the end of the path that you can see there, further on down the path to the left, is the garage for mine and number 4. We have a big car park which takes 4 cars, and there's 2 garages on our ground. Go back down the end. This isn't a through road for Pelham Road at all, as it's put on the thing. It stops at the end, where after these shops, and their number, they've got more shops and actually does come onto the back. They are 50 to 62, 62 being Hoos on the corner, and the last one along that parade is number 50. After that, there is a big car park where there's 10 flats, and they have quite a big car park with 10 spaces. Then there's a brick wall, so there's no through road to Pelham Road at all. So we've got 10 people there with cars. We've got 4 from my garage and next doors, and there's about 4 that park down the side. So you've got 20 cars, quite a busy area, which is forever now being obstructed. The path, the actual car park, because of all the heavy vehicles that are now coming down, delivery vans, the rubbish that's being spilt over has caused the drains to be blocked on that access road. And the rubbish is never cleared up, it's just left where it's dropped. So it is a real problem in trying to keep this clear for the vehicles of the people that live there and the footpath. They have got their space, but if they can't have it all, if they want a big bin on there, which are unsightly, and they spoil the... If you could see the other side of the picture of Woodpath, which is a nice little road with nice, lovely houses. And I'm afraid that I feel they shouldn't be there. My thoughts are, why should this many people be inconvenienced on their daily lives? Because this one company, they seem to want to have a big business in a small area. There's just not enough room there for him to spread his wings. And it's unfair to the 20 residents in this area. And I just want to know, if all this did happen, where this gentleman with the company would now place his bins. Does he want to permanently keep them on the footpath? And if he was allowed to put a fence up, how would he get his bins out to be collected by the bin? Surely he doesn't think that state that you can see now is going to stay opposite some really lovely houses. So that's all I've got to say, really.
Thank you. We appreciate your time this morning and coming to give deputation at short notice, I understand. So, thank you. Okay, members, questions?
I've got a question. How big was the previous container? I do remember it quite well, actually. This is an area that's, this little crossroads is an area that's plagued by, difficult backland development, and actually where bin storage is really short and has caused lots of problems, including over the road. And it does mean that there is sometimes fly tipping and so forth. But could you tell me, the question is, how big was the previous container?
The previous container was 10 feet according to the enforcement case. That's all I've got in measurements, but yeah, 10 feet.
Which direction? I don't understand. You have to. How would it have superimposed on that?
About half the size.
Yes. Half as long that way? Yeah, okay. Because I don't remember it. I mean, I do remember there was one there, but I don't remember the details. Thank you, Chair. I mean, the question is really for planning officers as well. Where will the bins go?
Okay, all right. Judith, I'll ask you to turn your microphone off. I think John and then Darren. Where will the bins go?
Requiring a scheme for bin storage to be submitted for approval. Clearly, I take the point that the bins are stored in an ad hoc manner at the moment, encroaching onto land outside the applicant's control, and it is a planning matter that bins should be, there should be adequate space within the site for bin storage.
No condition could do that, could it? I mean, that you can't. You could not get any bins on that site that the person owns, let alone a car, which is meant to also go there.
There is space between the container and the building that could be utilised for that purpose.
Bin personnel get the bins out?
That would be for the applicant to arrange for the bins to be put out on the storage day.
Okay. John and then Darren.
Thank you, Chair. I know that I know there's going to be a new fence and a new roof. Can you tell me, my question is, how's the fence going to hit the floor, and is that, when you dig it in and put the posts in, etc., is that going to be on the pathway, or is the applicant intending to push the container back? Because at the moment it looks like the fence would fall onto public land.
This isn't public land.
Sorry, my mistake. Sorry, the lady did say onto another person's land. Then,
so the container wouldn't move. The fence is going to be roughly where those green bins are, or just along.
It's going to be. So my question is, it's going to be on somebody else's land.
This isn't clear from what the applicant submitted, but that's a problem for the applicant to deal with.
Follow-up question. So what we're being asked to look at today is giving planning permission to something that is going to put it on somebody else's land. Is that correct? In the fence would be on somebody else's land.
Fence would potentially be on someone else's land, but equally this could be part of the land. It wasn't clear. It's not been established whose land this is.
Okay, Darren. Oh, John, do you want to come back?
So we don't have the information. What Mary was saying, really, we don't have the information.
Darren.
I'll stick to questions for the time being. Why is this part retrospective?
So the shipping
emphasis on the word part.
Can we just have one microphone on one side? Thank you.
So this is part retrospective, as the shipping container and the flue and the roof are already on site, whereas the fence will be built. So part of this is retrospective, as in the shipping container, the flue and the roof to the rear of the shipping container, but additionally the fence will be built.
Okay, that's helpful. Why are there no lights?
In the application, the applicant has stated they will provide lights, but these weren't visible on site, and it's not clear from the applicant where these would go.
Just a follow-up question.
Oh, should we let Darren finish?
That's right. Please hold that, Judith. I have a few more, if that's all right. You talk a lot about the one. The report talks a lot about the one at number 60, which is next door and closer to the Woodpath Road, from what I see, which had, according to your report, 50 supporting comments, and you don't say has any objections. I understand you're saying please ignore that. We'll come back to that in a bit. But is the one at number 60 the same size as is being proposed for number 62? Yes or no?
In terms of the shipping container or the fence?
Yes, the shipping container.
Yes, it's the same size.
It's the same size. Okay. And presumably it fulfills the same activities. Am I correct?
Apologies, it is a slightly smaller shipping container.
So it's smaller.
But yes, roughly these are the same activities. There's a refrigeration unit in both of these.
Okay. I'm going to come, if I may, I'm only going to do this in one go, Chris, no, actually I'll wait because others will comment, but I'll come back later. I've got a whole series of other questions.
I'm sure I don't need to remind members. Questions are by the chair, otherwise we're just having conversations between each other, and that's not how the meeting works. Okay, Judith, do you want to come back? And then
I wasn't clear on this is part enforcement or part planning. This particular sized shipping container was put up without permission. Am I correct or not?
You are correct, Councillor. It was installed without permission.
Thank you very much. That's very relevant.
Chair, I really want some advice, if that's possible. It looks as if there are questions that we don't know some of the answers to about whether the fence posts are going to go in on land that's under control of the applicant or somebody else. We don't have a plan for for the bins to be properly done. If you look on Google Earth, when there's a smaller shipping container, the bins were on the right of what was a smaller bin, smaller container and therefore off the footpath. And we don't appear to have a plan from the applicant about how they will manage waste, and it looks grotty. In that case, where we don't have those things, is it best for us to defer so that we've got that information, or is it best just to say no and send it away?
Is there a question?
Yes, no, I'm wanting advice about what's the right route for us to take in the planning terms.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to...
Somebody's got to take it.
Defer to Juliet for legal advice on this.
When you put in a planning application, it has a red outlined plan which sets out what land the application relates to. It doesn't set out ownership of land. So I could actually put in a planning application on someone else's land. So it's not relevant in that sense.
I think the example often used is I could put in a planning application to build in the garden of Buckingham Palace, and it would still have to be done even though I don't currently own Buckingham Palace.
I think that's Crown land, so it wouldn't apply, but...
What a rubbish answer, sorry.
But yes, I get your drift.
Touche. Okay.
Yes, I mean, if you wanted to put a planning application, for example, on my land, you could do that. But obviously you wouldn't be able to implement it because I'd go, sorry, no, Gerald, you can't do that.
Helpful? Okay. Peter and then Judith.
Could we see the aerial view, the plan view? There's one where we are looking down very much more from above rather than at the side as well. And whilst that's coming up, I thought we established that the one that is next to it is 10 foot, not 20 foot. Is that correct? Yes. So half the size,
Correct.
Okay. I would have had a question also about the lights, which are indicated, but we're not told how big or how bright they are. So I wonder if there's a concern around that, but we don't have the answer to that question. And I haven't got the comments yet, but no, I shall wait.
Okay, thank you. Judith?
Comments now or questions?
Well, any more questions before we move on? Mary? Question?
Is it possible to have this removed? Since it didn't ask permission?
Okay. Gerald, do you have a question?
No, I was coming to comments.
All right, comments then.
Sorry, just getting back to, there's a slight technical hitch there. Councillor Vallely, sorry. If planning permission is refused, then enforcement action could be pursued, yes.
Okay. Shard, so comments or questions?
I want to say I agree with Mary, my colleague, yes. She's right.
All right, well, we'll get there toward the end of the debate. So comments, Gerald and then Judith.
So I think that there are people who, I think Judith may well be proposing that we refuse this. It seems to me we're either refusing or deferring. My worry with a refusal, straight refusal, is that an appeal might well get through. My temptation is to defer to see if we can get more information, because if he can come up with a plan that gets those bins off the streets, and it looks decent, then I think that actually would potentially make things better. I just don't know if he can. We don't know about the ownership of the land and whether the owner has got the permission to be able to put a fence up or not or whatever. So I think this is unsightly and not good and makes the area look bad, particularly because it forces the bins out. But I think we might be on a stronger position to refuse this subsequently if we can get more information. So much as I would like to turn this down here and now, my personal feeling is that that would potentially lead to an appeal, and knowing what planning inspectors are like, they seem to give permission to anything and everything, however hideous it is. But others may have a very different view, and I'm very happy to be swayed by that.
Are you moving a motion?
I'm proposing that we defer this to get more information.
I am going to propose that we turn this down. I think it was put there without permission. It's twice as big as the one just down the lane, which I think is acceptable, and I think that allows space for the bins to be taken off the road, off the path. It's what you'd call a grot spot at the moment, and we've got to do something to clear that up. It's one of the things that we need to be much sharper about, particularly in this part of Southsea, where there have been difficulties with bins. The whole of the crossroads has been plagued by difficulties of bins, and this is much too big. And I went down there the other day and had a look, because it's not really close to where I live, but it's in St Jude Ward, and I think it's much bigger than the previous one. It's unacceptably big, and it is a temporary structure. They put it there without permission. There's got to be somewhere where they put the bins. There's got to be somewhere where you can erect the fence that can indeed mitigate it, particularly if the bins are put behind the fence, so the fence is bigger than the new container that may need to be put there. I've got every sympathy with them wanting to put their refrigeration somewhere, but they've got enough room overall to put the bins in their own curtilage, and I don't think it's acceptable to have that pile of bins which inevitably get attacked by seagulls and which do attract fly tipping, because I've seen it there in the past. So I think we should refuse this. We can't have people just plonking huge containers in backland, inadequately spaced, and think they can get away with it. This is the extremes of backland development that we wouldn't normally allow. It's not anywhere near anything you'd get with permitted development, which maybe the smaller unit would be. So I think this should be refused, and they should remove it, and then they can consider what kind of planning application they'd need to put in for a smaller unit with space for bins off the road. I don't think deferring is not going to do any good at all.
Okay, thank you, Judith. Darren, and then John.
I wish to second that refusal. I understand Gerald's viewpoint, and normally he would be right. But I think we have got enough information to refuse this, or we haven't got enough information not to refuse this, to be more accurate, on the grounds of residential amenity of occupiers. Firstly, this was built without planning permission. I'm not completely sure even the planning inspectorate might take a dim view of that one. Secondly, it is twice the size of the container next door, which everybody seemed to like, it seems. So again, I don't understand that. Thirdly, I don't understand what the impact will be on the vehicles who are using the access road which the lady behind me owns. It is a retrospective application, and I think there is actually an answer, which is to revert to the original size of the container, which is the same as the size next door. So I think deferral I understand, but I think we have enough information, and enough information that's not been given in order to sustain a refusal at appeal. So on that basis, I second Judith's refusal. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren.
Chair, I was just going to back everything that's been said by Judith and Darren, really. I was going to say exactly the same thing. I think a precedent has been set with the corner one, half the size. That seems to work. I think from the photo, that doesn't look great. I think we're in danger of making it a bit of a tin city if you've got the size they're going for, and everything needs to be on this little access area outside. So I would echo everything that's been said by Judith and Darren.
Okay, all right. Well, members, any more comments, Gerald?
So, having heard colleagues, I'll withdraw my suggestion of deferral.
I haven't got a seconder. Peter.
I'm not going to disagree with the rest of the committee. All I would add as a comment for it to be taken away is that I support the fact that they are actually putting a fence in at all, and that if we do refuse it and it does come back again, we definitely should have a fence, and they might even consider what else they could do to help make that shipping container look more attractive that doesn't interfere with the operational exercise of their business. They could paint it, they could put something nice on top. There are many things you can do with shipping containers other than dump them in an alleyway.
Indeed. John.
Sorry, and I think the thing needs to be cleared up. Anything was going to come back about the land. I mean, putting it on somebody else's land as well.
And Chair, one more if I may. I failed to put in the question section a comment I wanted to make, which is I would also have a concern about the scale of what lighting they are putting in there. A little lighting is probably good, illuminating a dark alley. Searchlight intensity, brightness might be a hazard to other people, and I just can't tell from this application.
Okay, right, well, lots for the applicant to think about. Members, is there anything else? So the motion, Judith, Darren's motion to refuse is before us. Do you have enough words, Julia?
Chair, could the planning officer may want to come back and make comments on what's proposed?
Chair, thank you. With regard to the reason for refusal, I've got some draft wording here which I could run past you. The siting of the container due to its size and location and inadequate bin storage is considered to be harmful to the amenity and character of the area, contrary to policy PCS 23 in the Portsmouth Plan and the NPPF.
Are you happy?
That's okay. If there's any chance to put into some sort of informatic the fact that we would like to see a planning commission for a smaller container, if that was, I don't know if we can put that on as information, but also the points that Peter made about we'd be concerned particularly about the degree of lighting proposed and would want to see some amelioration with a fence and behind which the bins could be stored.
Okay, and Darren, you sure seconding?
Yeah, I'd support that.
So size, lighting, and fence.
Behind which the bins can be stored.
Can we add that? Okay, and on the right line. Yeah. Okay. Happy? Right, okay. Members, unless there is anything else, let's move to the vote. So, members, those in favour of refusing planning application, please indicate.
That's unanimous, Chair. The planning permission has been refused.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, let's move on to 16 Shadwell Road.
Change of use from dwelling house C3 to purposes within C3, C4, HMO, relates to a two-storey mid-terrace dwelling house located on the northern side of Shadwell Road. The property is set back from the road by a small front forecourt and to the rear by an enclosed garden. The layout comprised current layout comprises of a lounge, dining room, conservatory, bathroom and kitchen at ground floor level, 4 bedrooms and a bathroom at first floor level. The application is within, the site is within a predominantly residential area, and most of which are two-storey. Looking at the HMO count plan, 14 of the properties within the 50-metre radius are flats rather than HMOs. So the property is currently being used as an HMO, hence this application is retrospective for that reason. The application form states that, so just moving over the existing floor plans, slide missing here. Yeah. The application form states that the property was in use as a C4 property from 2013 to 2023. However, the case officers reviewed council tax records which were only able to confirm the use from 2017 onwards. It's currently in use as a C3 dwelling house. The applicant has set out that the property was occupied by at most 4 occupants while it was in the C4 use. Looking at the HMO count data, There are 72 properties within the 50-metre radius of the site. There are only 4 confirmed HMOs at numbers 13, 15 and 29 Shadwell Road and 289 London Road. Number 29 is not on the plan, but it was recently recommended by this committee for planning permission. A number of addresses have also been raised to the case officer by neighbours as being potential HMOs, but the case officer, having reviewed these, has determined that most are in use as C3 dwellings, albeit flats, which do not fall into Class C4 and therefore are not considered within the data count. In addition, you should note that number 17 Shadwell Road was previously investigated to establish its use and was confirmed to be owned and managed by the Clarion Housing Group. It was visited by the planning enforcement team, who spoke with a care worker at the door who confirmed that the property provides supported living for 3 people with round-the-clock care. That was consistent with council tax and licensing data and is therefore, in planning terms, that property, number 17, is within use class C3B and is not within use class C4. So including the application property, the HMO count within the 50-metre radius, including this permission, and if this is granted permission, and 29 Shadwell Road will be 6.94%, which is lower than the 10% threshold the council deemed to be the threshold above which an area becomes imbalanced and in conflict with PCS 20. So just skimming through the existing floor plans and moving on to the proposed floor plans. It is noted that all bedrooms are identified as being double rooms for 2 occupants, but this has been discussed and raised with the applicant, who has stated that only 2 of the bedrooms will be for double occupancy, so as not to exceed the 6 occupants for C4. Also, reviewing the layout and the sanitary facilities being provided, it is considered that the proposal could only be occupied by up to 5 individuals. The case officer sought to confirm that 1 room to be double occupancy, but no response has been received from the applicant. And as such, the recommendation in the report is that to condition any permission granted restricting the occupancy to 5 individuals. Otherwise, the scheme is considered to meet the standards within Council's SPD for HMOs. Here are some photographs of the inside of the property as it is at the moment. The material planning considerations are set out in the report. We have two deputations to follow this presentation. 6 representations were received, raising the concerns set out in paragraph 7.2 of the officer report. No objections from consultees, and as such the recommendation is to grant permission subject to the conditions set out on pages 65 and 66 of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. Councillor Strudwick, 6 minutes to give your deputation.
Thank you, Chair. I'm disappointed by this application and disappointed by the planning officers. It's adjacent from 2 8-bedroom HMOs, and still your data says it has 0 impact on parking as a material change. With this application, that is 22 potential cars for 3 houses, 22. While this application has been outlined that it's only for 6 people, obviously you've just changed it to 5, what reassurance do we have that the living room in 6 months won't be back here in the chamber for a sui generis? Which would then increase that to 23 potential cars, yet no material impact. Residents are concerned. Parking impacts, loss of family housing, strain on public services, noise concerns, fire safety concerns, impact on family character of the area, loss of property value, strain on our Victorian sewage system, which Southern Water with themselves, with all the works we're struggling with currently. Does potentially 22 cars not concern this committee? Does 22 additional people in 3 houses made for a max of 15 people not concern this committee? On the plans, I find the downstairs bathroom is not conveniently placed for a tenant. They either have to go through the shared living room or kitchen, and I personally know that I wouldn't like that. It's not ideal, as the en-suites that come every week in this planning, why change our standards now? To add bicycles, they would have to go through the kitchen or the living room to store. That's not great. I know the committee will vote this through today, and residents once again are not being listened to when it comes to their concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Strudwick. We are concerned about planning applications and we consider each one on its own merits, but I understand what you're saying. Councillor Simpson, you didn't want to chime in at this moment. Okay. Members, questions. Councillor Sanders first.
Thank you. This first came to planning's attention in May 23. This is a retrospective application, at least May 23, because that's when Councillor Peter Harris ceased to be a councillor. Why has it taken this long to get here? Has there been a problem with the applicant or just a lack of information from them, Edward? If you don't have any idea, that's lovely. Honesty works. Honesty is beautiful. Thank you very much indeed. Just a few more questions. On the floor plans, which is figure 4 in our pack, how many bedrooms are there?
The figure 4 on page 62 of the agenda shows...
No.
Shows 4 bedrooms.
No. Unless bedroom 1 dressing is, I'm assuming that, unless bedroom 1 dressing is the ancillary room to bedroom 1. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's...
It's accessed through bedroom 1.
So it goes through bedroom 1. Okay, that's fine. That's my misreading of that. So apologies for that. Just one other thing, Chair, if that's all right. 17 Shadwell Road, which was mentioned by Edward, is now not owned by the Clarion Group. It's now owned by the City Council's Housing Department, which I oversee. So, Juliet, I'll have to declare a personal but not prejudicial interest in number 17. Or that's a no. Okay, I don't have to do that then. So in the interest of openness and transparency, I shall do that. Yeah, those were my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vernon-Jackson.
Thank you. We've heard from Edward a suggestion we put a condition on this of 5 people. When we've asked in the past about putting a condition limiting the number of people, we have been told by our lawyers that that was inappropriate and unenforceable. Has the legal advice changed?
Juliet.
No, the advice is that conditions can go on in certain circumstances. I didn't give any advice on the drafting of this one.
If I can, yes, Chair, thank you. If I can just clarify. So the reason for this condition, Councillor, is set out on page 66, in order for the property not to exceed the SPD standards for the number of residents, given the lack of a further bathroom and communal space.
Yes, it's the lack of bathroom that requires the restriction to 5.
Is that useful?
I don't recall that we were told that it was unenforceable. We rely on these things being enforceable. I think we were usually told that it was de trop, in that there were already statements on the application which restricted the numbers, and that it would be belt and braces and therefore not necessary to do it. And I think placing that condition, given the bathrooms, is a good thing.
Helpful, yeah. Absolutely.
And supportable.
Yeah. Okay, members. Gerald, did you want to come back on?
When we get to comments, I will have a proposal.
Any other questions, members? Okay, comments, Gerald.
Thank you. And thanks for that deputation. I think those of us on the committee know that we are severely limited by government and the planning inspectors about what we can look at, because we don't want to give residents a misapprehension that if we say no to something, that the developer can't go to appeal and win. Therefore, we know, and the advice has been absolutely clear, that parking is not a reason that we can use to turn down development. Fall in property values is not a reason that we can use, and it'll just mean the developer gets permission to do that. I have to take my bike through my kitchen and my dining room to get it out the front door on the occasional times I use it, and that is not unusual across the city. It is, and again, that's not a reason that we could use. But my frustration often here is we get people coming to do deputations who don't give us a reason that I think could be used to say no to something. But I think in this case, we do have a reason in that, as I understand it, a C4 classification is an HMO up to 6 people. And the advice here from the planning officers is there are not enough bathrooms to be able to look after 6 people. There is the idea we could do a condition, but the advice we've had in the past is that conditions limiting number of people are not always effective. So I think the simplest route to go is a straight refusal, because there are too many people to be at 6 to be able to use the bathrooms correctly, and therefore I would propose refusal.
Thank you. Juliet, do you want to?
Yes, officers are advising in this case that you can put a condition on to restrict it to 5 persons due to the number of bathrooms and toilets. Where you can put a condition on, it has to be necessary, relevant to the development to be permitted, enforceable, precise and reasonable in all other aspects. Officers are telling you that, yes, we are putting a condition on for that. So I would advise against refusal on that basis.
Thanks very much for the advice. I'm happy to leave my proposal on the table.
Thank you. Judith.
I think the condition of only 5 being able to live there does, to a large extent, get rid of the concerns I had previously about the bathrooms, the ablutions. 5 is no more than many families who have 5, sometimes with 3 adults, 5 adults living together. And I think we would stand very, very little chance of getting an appeal through on that basis, and could end up, therefore, with a worse situation. So I would like to propose the officer's recommendation.
Darren. Judith, you can just pop your microphone. Thank you.
Sorry to add to the list, but I would like to propose that we restrict the number to 4 people. The details we have it's paragraph 811, and it's clear that the applicant has not replied to the planning team around issues, and the lack of information led to refusal in the previous application. Now it is clear that there are 4 bedrooms. It seems all of which on the floor plans are for 2 people, not just 1. It would seem logical, given the lack of response from the applicant, to restrict the number to 4 people, in other words, 1 per bedroom. And therefore I propose that to add to the list. Chris.
Okay, thank you.
Does Edward want to come back on that?
Do you, Edward? No? Okay.
Can I come in then, please? Yeah. In terms of restricting the occupancy to 4 persons, we wouldn't be recommending that, because 1 to 4 persons need 1 bathroom and 1 WC. 5 persons, you need 1 bathroom and 1 separate WC. So there would be no reason to restrict it to 4 because it's okay to restrict it to 5. So I would be saying it's not necessary, it's not reasonable to restrict it to 4.
I understand that, Juliet, but on the basis of the lack of information, from the applicant as to the exact nature of what is going to go on here, I believe restricting it to 4 people is the safest option. I'm sure we will agree to disagree respectfully on that one, and I wait for other members to come back.
In the absence of the information, I would be advising you to restrict it to 5.
Okay. Members, further comments? We haven't got any seconders yet for any of these proposals. Yes, no, we haven't got anybody, none of the proposals have been seconded yet, so we haven't made any progress with that.
Second, a proposal for 5 people.
Peter?
I would also have supported the proposal for the condition of 5 on the basis that I think we have no credible grounds of withstanding an appeal. At 18 square metres, for example, one of the bedrooms at least is very much larger than other ones that we have approved in other places. And I am conscious of the fact that a failed appeal not only delays things and causes rework, it imposes a cost upon council taxpayers. So on the basis that I think we would have little chance of winning it with a condition of 4, I support the move to a condition of 5.
Thank you. Okay, members. Any other comments? No? Well, we have a motion before us. Councillor Smythe and Vallely's motion to move the officer's recommendations with the conditions attached. Unless there is anything else, we'll move to the vote. Those in favour, please indicate. Against? Anybody abstaining? No.
Planning permission is therefore granted.
Thank you, Juliet. Okay, we'll move on to Chichester Road.
Chair, before you, as
Oh,
was
you're
said
going to
earlier,
go.
I've got to disagree, young man.
Thank you, Councillor Dent. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Right, moving on. 115 Chichester Road. This is an application for change of use from a C3 dwelling to a 7-bed, 7-person HMO. There is nothing to report in the supplementary matters report. There are deputations from the agent and a couple of objectors to follow. The application site comprises a 2-storey two-storey mid-terraced dwelling located on the northern side of Chichester Road, as shown on screen in front of you. I hope that plan is clear enough for you to see. My pointer is pointing at the red line there, and similarly on the aerial photograph there. The property is set back from the highway by a small front garden and has a fair-sized rear garden. The surrounding area is residential in character with similar terraced properties, and as described, planning permission is being sought for a 7-person HMO. This is the property in Street Scene, as indicated by the red arrow. Moving on to the data count, there are 70 properties within the 50-metre radius. One has been identified as an HMO in lawful use. Therefore, the existing percentage is 1.4. With the addition of this one, that would increase to 2.9%, which is below the 10% threshold. Comments have been raised by third parties regarding the high density of HMOs along Chichester Road, and that could be due to the length of the road being about 1 kilometre in length, but officers have checked both planning history and licensing records, and the data count data is considered to be accurate. Moving on to the existing floor plans, traditional layout, side rear elevations, and then moving on to the proposed floor plans. So on the ground floor you have 2 bedrooms, both with ensuite shower, toilet and hand basins, and a communal kitchen diner area and a shared WC, so 2 bedrooms with en-suites. The communal, available WC and the kitchen dining area there. On the first floor there are 3 bedrooms, all with en-suite facilities as shown. And on the second floor in the roof there are again a further 2 bedrooms, both with en-suite facilities. All rooms are adequate for single occupancy and meet the standards. All the external works to the property to enable the HMO use are being carried out under permitted development, and you will note from the officer report that there is condition number 5 requiring the HMO work, the PD permitted development work, sorry, to be carried out prior to the occupation of the property as a 7-bed HMO. And the applicant has indeed stated that works to extend the property will be undertaken and therefore should not be considered as part of this application. Just to give you an idea, there's some photographs from the rear of the property. So as with other cases of this nature, stated in the officer report, the issues are summarised in paragraph 1.2. Some 63 objections have been received in response to this application, raising the concerns set out in paragraph 7.2. No objections received from consultees, private sector housing, highways or Natural England. The material planning considerations are set out in section 8 of the report on pages 71 through to 75, and the officer recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to the conditions and to a legal agreement to secure the necessary SPA mitigation on page 76. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. Carry on. 6 minutes.
Thank you. At Apical, we have a small team of people who could not be more passionate about providing our clients with high-end, compliant, well-designed shared living spaces. We have designed many HMOs in Portsmouth and surrounding areas, and our designs have never been subject to refusal of a HMO licence. We ensure all of our designs are fully compliant with planning, building control and HMO licensing, and we work hard to ensure we stay at the forefront of any changes. We are really keen to ensure our client has the best possible experience with us and is left with a great designed shared living home to ultimately give tenants the best possible living experience. With 115 Chichester Road, all bedrooms meet or exceed 10 square metres. The bedrooms range from 10.04 square metres up to 18.98. As you all know, the required communal area for 7 persons when all bedrooms meet the 10 square metres is 22.5, and this property provides 24 square metres, which is slightly in excess of requirement, with the benefit of an additional WC at ground floor level for the comfort of the residents. There will be a cycle store provided within the rear garden, and this property has a rear access to the property, which is also an additional benefit for those tenants who may have cycles. I've heard a bit about parking this morning. Chichester Road is on a main bus route, so in a sustainable location. There's local amenities within walking distance. Our last property that was rented out on Chichester Road actually only has two tenants of drive from that 7-bed house. The house is going to be finished to a high specification, and our client is keen to offer tenants high-end accommodation. Whilst I appreciate HMOs generally have a bad stigma among residents, this is a spacious property which could easily accommodate 8 bedrooms and shared bathrooms. But the clients we work with have chosen to follow our guidance and provide high-end 7 bedrooms, 7 ensuite, giving each tenant their own sanitary facilities, which we believe gives tenants the best possible living experience. I think it's really important to remember HMOs provide a much needed housing type within the city and contribute towards mixed and balanced communities, and provide, there's a growing need of people that actually need all bills provided, utilities, living, because they can't afford to get on the housing ladder. Thank you all for listening. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Councillor Swan, 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just before I start, there's 2 deputations from residents that don't appear to be on the list, so I'm wondering, is there room for any latitude for me to present those on their behalf, because they're not able to be here for childcare and parental care reasons?
Okay, so so they asked to give a deputation?
I've been sent 2 deputations that they want presenting. It's my understanding that they sent it through to the planning, although I can't substantiate that.
Before midday yesterday?
Sorry?
Before midday yesterday?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
I mean, it's all rather late in the day, Ben.
Chair, you may incorporate them into his 6 minutes, if that's possible.
Right, okay, well, I will try and read them one after another and try and make the time. Yeah, that'd be great if I could. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm speaking in opposition of the application for another 7-bed, potentially 14-person HMO at 114 Chichester Road. I note from the last planning meeting that the question of the potential for HMOs is to actually have 14 people was discussed and subsequently dismissed because a condition will be imposed. I'm intrigued as to how this would ever be enforced. The reality is that all of the bedrooms will have double beds, whether this committee wants to acknowledge it or not, and this will lead to more than 7 people in the residence and many more cars in the local area spending time driving around looking for spaces to park. It's a fact. We can argue about it, but it's a fact. As there are every time an application like this comes to the committee, there are many issues to oppose this application. And they are issues that pose serious questions of current policy and process. For example, I renew my point that if the administration is serious about its green credentials, why is there not a cast iron link between planning policy and green policy? Adding developments that will increase the amount of cars driving around the Copner area looking for parking spaces that frankly aren't there to start with seems ludicrous, and yet there is still nothing to explain why this is allowed to continue. This application is on an already busy road in Copner used by children travelling to and from the area, area's 4 schools, and we're supposed to be encouraging children and parents to be walking, cycling and scooting to school through the increasing bad air quality guaranteed by the continued addition of HMOs. And whilst these children are walking and cycling and scooting to school, they are also now having to run the gauntlet of human excrement flowing from our sewers on a regular basis. If you haven't seen the photo of the huge pile of human excrement in Randolph Road, I'll be happy to share it with you. I also want to ask how the decision has been arrived at that a sui generis HMO of 7 unrelated residents will have only 2 cars. I can only assume that this is a hope rather than logic, which calls into question how other hypotheticals, such as behaviour, mess, etc., can be dismissed whenever raised. But what seems like a fanciful assumption on cars per property can be seen as ever close to reasonable, even close to reasonable. Mr. Chairman, I know the usual suspects will ask the usual leading questions and will see and hear the same old lines, but the fact remains that the planning policy does not adequately take into consideration many of the unique factors that affect our island city and must be addressed. Councillor Vernon Jackson bemoaned deputations that don't raise material objections, but it is vital that residents have their voices heard, as this is the essence of our democracy. Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to present my deputation to the committee. Portsmouth City Council's planning application website has seen a rapidly increasing amount of HMOs from Applecore over the past 3 years. PCC does not appear to consider the cumulative effect of granting all these applications, but takes each one on an individual basis. The 10% density policy might be sufficient to control a normal rate of HMO development, but it was not intended to cater for the speed of current applications from Applecore. As an island city, a special case, PCC needs to reduce its HMO density policy to a prescriptive 5% to slow down HMO applications. Using social media, Alistair Farquhar's business model is spawning mentees who will continue to develop thousands more potential HMOs until the quota in Portsmouth is full. These mentees, such as Kieran Goldie and Simon Hill, for example, then become mentors themselves and spawn their own set of mentees, creating a highly effective pyramid scheme. Family homes are bought off-market, sold to investors, developed into sui generis HMOs, and everyone involved makes huge profits. They will continue at this rate until PCC slows it down by changing their HMO density policy to a prescriptive 5%. The long streets of Victorian houses of Copner and Hilsey particularly are being swamped by HMOs. Why are the developers being given priority over the residents of Portsmouth streets who pay their council tax? Comments and objections left on HMO applications demonstrate the strength of feeling among ordinary people who know they will have to endure building noise for weeks on end and live next door to HMOs. In some cases, housing adjoining HMOs are experiencing damage during building works. Families are moving out of the area. Many HMO tenants can be viewed as transient population who often don't feel the need to engage with or contribute to the local community. Portsmouth City Council is ignoring the needs of its citizens. PCC needs to step up, take responsibility and make the necessary changes. Stop blaming central government. Carrie-Anne Wells should hang her head in shame for the part she plays in pushing through these applications. Applecore celebrates planning.
Ben, I'm sure this is. I mean, we are. You know, I'm giving you a bit of extra time, but hopefully we're coming towards the end.
Chair, why?
Well, I'll be coming towards the end, Ben. It's. And you know, the language is a little
Chair,
strong.
I thought I'm at a planning meeting.
Wait. Ben, are you coming towards the end?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and then. Okay, all right, okay.
Okay, I hope the clock was stopped. The same goes for Alistair Farquhar enjoying his large detached family home gained through ruthless business practices. They both undoubtedly live far away from any HMOs and will not be affected by the issues associated with them. Mr. Gary Simpson, the new owner of 115 Chichester Road, intends to invest in 4 HMOs in total, this being his first. This will give him a substantial passive income whilst taking yet more family homes off residential streets. Parking on Chichester Roads, 115 Chichester Road previously had 2 occupants until one passed away, leaving a single occupant. The property had 1 car associated with the former occupant, which was awarded a disabled parking space. The committee report argues that the property could have been sold to a large family with adults living in it, each with 1 or more cars. This would be unusual.
Even with the stop clock, we've run out of time.
Okay.
Okay, look, we do want to hear your voice. We want to hear residents' voices at this committee. Of course, we don't set the policy. We are here to interpret and do our best to come to a balanced and fair decision. Okay, right. Who's next? Councillor Verzakli, 6 minutes.
Bless you. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, I think this application, you can see by the growing concern expressed by local residents, by far the greatest number of objections to anything you've got before you today, shows their concern and sheer frustration from the people that live in the very area where these developments and applications are popping up from. You can see the range of their objections, covering 9 separate issues. Touching first of all, Councillor Vernon Jackson mentioned in a previous application about the issue of parking and its validity and consideration of an application. Well, that does come into consideration, certainly in the report, it's on 8.22, but the planning officers have detailed in the report that allowing this application does not contravene the 10% limit for HMOs in the area. And that's correct, I can't dispute bare facts. However, I'd like to focus on some of the 9 reasons that have been given as to why I believe, and I ask the committee, to refuse this particular application. As a local councillor, my first point is seeing the impact of parking. North End, like many areas of the city, is subject to severe demand for parking places. What has become apparent with HMOs in general, certainly those that have sprung up in the ward I represent, and I appreciate this is in Copner Ward, but it's so close to Nelson Ward, that's the reason why I'm here to speak on behalf of it. The occupants in those particular HMOs have more than the number of vehicles that are predicted by the highways team. You heard from the applicant's agent there that their last property, I believe she mentions, has 2. Well, clearly her view, I can't dispute that, but what I see as a ward councillor, and when I visit residents that contact me, as I'm sure many else of you do in your own particular wards, is that the reality is not what's the prediction from highways officers. This particular property can have, as Councillor Swan said, potentially up to 14 people in it. All of these individuals are likely to be in some form of work in order to survive and maintain their financial obligations, and therefore travelling to and from a place of employment, whilst the council's adopted parking policy sets out a requirement for cycle storage, such provision often goes either underused or not used at all. I mean, applicants to these types of developments aren't ignorant of the fact, and I think that's apparent by this case, by this designated areas given, you have to reach it by going through the house. Councillor Vern Jackson again mentioned earlier this is not unusual, but I think it kind of adds weight to the fact that cycle provision is limited in the value that it provides. The majority, I think, as again my experience from previous HMOs, is that they do have more than two people using vehicles. Impact on neighbouring living conditions. Again, there seems to be a degree of naivety in the report by stating the application would be unlikely to be significantly different by having up to at least 7 unrelated persons in residence. I believe the council should undertake a comprehensive survey across the city to seek the views of residents who actually live next door or close by to HMOs. I'm sure I'm not the only councillor who's responded to representation from residents in such situations who've suffered from antisocial behaviour, increased noise, and all have arisen once an HMO has come into being. A family unit is not the same as at least 7 unrelated individuals. A C3 dwelling, in this instance it says 2.4, well, let's be realistic, you won't get 2.4 people, give a minimum 3. That's going to more than double to at least 7, each with their own televisions, music systems, etc. They leave and return to the property, they get visitors. It doesn't take a genius to realise that there's going to be more than just a significant difference. In fact, 8.32 of the report states an increase from a C3 dwelling to one of more than 7 persons is a measurable increase. I appreciate that's a different concern in regards to the issue it's addressing, but I believe it highlights my point of concern about the impact of these HMOs. On sewage and drainage, and Councillor Strudwick mentioned it in her deputation about an issue in her ward, this is another relevant concern and one that's been successful in previous cases of HMO refusal, certainly one that came in last year in Nelson Ward at North End Avenue. Portsmouth suffers particularly badly, courtesy of Southern Water I have to add, a company that is regularly unable to maintain a reliable working sewage network, as evidenced by the numerous closures along the Eastern Road. All 7 of the rooms are to be en suite, so from what was previously, I believe, a single bathroom and toilet, before we now have at least 7. I urge the committee to reject this scheme. Listen to reasons. Heed the experience that you've had within your own wards. Listen to the residents of Copner and those nearby in Nelson that actually live near these areas, that suffer the cumulative impact of what's been highlighted in their objections, and what I think Councillor and I and Swan have sought to detail to you today. Apologies, I'm somewhat croaky in my voice, but that's all I'd like to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Versackley. Of course, just to reiterate, we're in the business of material planning considerations, and we have enormous sympathy for lots of the points raised. Most of us, I think, have large numbers of HMOs in our own wards, but the job of this committee is to look at the material planning considerations. The conversations should be had with the Cabinet Member for Planning Policy, not here. Right, okay. Jason, if I could ask you to turn your microphone off, that would be helpful. Members, questions? Councillor Vernon Jackson.
Thank you. In terms of parking, which has been brought up today, when planning inspectors have looked at HMO planning applications which have been turned down using the lack of parking as a reason for refusal, what is the record of this council of being able to defend a refusal on the grounds of lack of car parking?
I don't have the answer to that question to hand. I'll have to take it away.
My understanding, the advice from the Assistant Director of Planning, and he may be wrong, but the advice that we have consistently got from the Assistant Director of Planning is that planning inspectors have looked at the issue of lack of car parking as a reason for turning down an HMO and have said that that does not work, and therefore they've approved those applications. If we're going to use planning as a lack of parking as a reason for turning down a planning application, we've got to know that it's likely to be supported by the Michael Gove's inspectors, because otherwise we're just giving people false hope. And that is unrealistic, and we're just deluding people. So I'm sorry, I am looking for some advice on this, because we've been asked specifically to turn this down about lack of car parking. But my understanding and my memory is the advice from the head of planning is that if we do so, we have not a hope in hell of getting that supported by Michael Gove's inspectors.
Okay, and Edward is onto that as we speak. Yeah,
Yes.
Okay, so hopefully by the end of the debate we'll have some information. Do you want to assist?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure how many applications would have gone to PINs relating to car parking, because as officers we always advise you against refusing something due to parking reasons. So the advice that Ian has been giving to you is, yeah, you won't stand a chance of winning this on appeal, so I can confirm that for you, if that helps.
Thank you, Judith. Edward, if you could just pop your microphone off.
I've got a very specific question before we come on to make a comment. Could you demonstrate to me, Edward, by looking at the plans for the floors, at the proposed ground floor, and could you give me a picture of where the bed's going to go?
Councillor, for your question, yes.
It's bedroom number
Which?
7, I think. Can't read it. I haven't got my glasses.
The one at the back.
Yeah,
Do you mean
the
that
one
one
at the
there?
back. The very narrow one. Where is a double bed going to fit?
Not having a scale plan to hand, I couldn't determine.
I mean, let's just use some rules of thumb if we
mean-
can, because we're used to seeing beds in these on these plans. I'm just looking for some technical advice from you, because your eye is probably better than mine.
Potentially under the window at the rear.
Which way round? I mean, we know the we know the size of a double bed. We need to just slot one in and see if it works.
Helpfully, my colleague here has measured on a scale drawing. He's just checking the scale.
Bearing in mind you usually have to have somewhere to get in on the side, you know.
Yeah. So I think we're determining, Councillor, that a double bed could fit up against the wall and still leave sufficient space. A standard double, that is, not a king size. This pointer seems to have died.
I mean, I'd be happy if somebody could perhaps wing you a plan that showed a bed on there, an ordinary double. I don't want to see anything bigger.
Well, as I say, my colleague here has measured out the area of a typical double bed, and
I mean, you might have somebody in there who'd chosen a ground floor room because they'd perhaps got a bit of a gammy leg. You just got to make sure anybody could get into a bed in that corner.
Karen,
I can't hear you, I'm afraid.
no, but you've done your deputation.
occupancy is ultimately controlled by licensing rather than planning.
Edward, could you just confirm the width of the room? That might be helpful.
To that,
Okay, while they're doing that, shall we? Oh, we got it?
approximately 2.3 metres.
I don't have in my mind the dimensions of a normal double bed.
4'6" wide, or yes, 1 point. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear your answers.
About 40 centimetres.
6 or 1.5 metres, Councillor.
So about 40 centimetres either side.
That's very, very narrow.
It's 40 centimetres. You'd have to be quite tiny.
So if you put it up against the corner, which I concede is fine, it's only a one-person room, what would you have? 2 foot, which is about that much, 2'6".
Chair, maybe the question is, since this is a licensing matter, does it meet licensing standards, in which case we must assume that they have looked at the bed fitting?
So
I personally, I think it will be fine.
But also for us to consider whether it's livable space.
I think it's, if it's 2 foot on one side and you put the other side up against the wall, I think it's probably not a room I'd choose if I had a choice, but it's adequate. Thank you.
Okay. Members?
But we do need measurements of that sort in the plans in the future. We shouldn't have to guess that sort of thing. It is long and thin.
Further questions? Judith, could I ask you to pop your microphone off? Thank you. Any other questions? Any news about parking? Well, I mean, yeah, Juliet's advice was pretty clear, but I wondered if you'd had anything back. Well, look, members, comments?
I'd like to comment that I'm very pleased that there's a tanks room. I'd like to comment that a lot of us on the council and in this room specifically live in areas which have a much higher density of HMOs. We do, there are some experiences of bad behaviour and things, but the vast majority, even in areas which is almost the whole street is, we're coming on to one of those later on, is HMOs, doesn't offer the problems that were anticipated in the earlier deputation. And I would like to propose that we move the officer's recommendation. I'm really pleased to see a tanks room that can be used as a little laundry. That's one of my favourite things to see.
Thank you. Councillor Vernon-Jackson.
I don't want to give residents undue optimism about being able to say no to this, because I think Michael Gove's team has been absolutely clear that the government are strongly in favour of HMOs and refuse to give councils powers to turn them down. And Michael Gove's inspectors regularly give permission. And I think a change in government won't make that any different. But I think we're asked to look at usable space in rooms, and I hadn't picked up, and my thanks to Judith for this, that little corridor on the ground floor becomes a bedroom with a double bed in, and I think that's not a livable space for somebody, and potentially 2 people. So I would not be happy with that as a bedroom to be occupied in that way. And therefore I would propose that we refuse planning permission because it doesn't, because of, I'm sure Juliet will give us some wording, but that it doesn't produce bedrooms that are of a, one of the bedrooms is not of a size of a usable space to be able to, for people to live properly. And therefore that lack of amenity to residents means that we shouldn't say yes to this.
Thank you. Judith, I'll ask you to pop your microphone off. Thank you. Any other comments, members? Edwards, come.
Sorry, Councillor, can I just clear up some misunderstanding, I think, here, that all these rooms are for single occupancy, and they're all over 14 square metres in area, and additionally the licensing requirement stipulates a minimum width of 2.15 metres, so this room exceeds that width.
But we don't do planning by numbers, do we? So we have to make a judgment about...
They don't all... Did you say they exceed 14 square metres? They don't. There's some 10s.
5 and 7 exceed.
Yeah, but it's still, this planning permission is for 7 people in 7 bedrooms, and that therefore we don't need a condition about 7 people because it's already described in the planning application. So they are for single occupancy. And I said earlier, normally I look at whether I would like to live in a particular room or would find it possible. We've all lived in these sort of accommodations in the past. I think that one is the least good here, but I don't think it justifies a planning refusal.
Okay, members, well, neither motions have been seconded yet. Any other thoughts, Peter?
I was going to make a comment still. I think the law may be wrong in some places, but it is the law. As far as I can see, this HMO is compliant both to the law and to the standards we set. I do share the concerns of this committee and also the local residents about the pressure on infrastructure and about antisocial behaviour, but that is not really relevant to this HMO. It does anger me, annoy me, as someone who's just shipped his 23-year-old daughter to go and live in an HMO in Bristol, whose room is of a dimension smaller than the one we've just been looking at. We have to accept that there is a need for this type of accommodation within the city, and therefore we have to ask ourselves whether this particular application is a positive move or whether it is an unacceptable one. And on that basis, I will be supporting the application.
Are you seconding?
So I will
Councillor
second Councillor Smythe's recommendation, particularly because the grounds that I've heard so far are only likely to result in refusal, and refusal will then cost us money. And the council has better things to spend its money on.
Okay. Any other thoughts? I'm going to second Councillor Vernon-Jackson's motion. I think livable space that's very tight to expect somebody to live in a room with, so narrow. So I shall second Councillor Vernon-Jackson's motion. Is there anything else? Okay, all right. Well, the first motion was Councillor Smythe's.
Chair, sorry, can I just come in? Where the room sizes are not considered to be an appropriate size, the bedroom sizes, officers have advised that you actually then look at the communal area rather than the size of the room, because the size of the room meets the standards. But you're saying that if you don't think the rooms meets the standard, you'd be looking at then the communal area, which is where they would then spend their time rather than in the room, the bedroom.
We still make a judgment about livable space.
Yes, so I'd advise you to be looking at the communal space rather than the actual bedroom size.
Well, people still got to get in and out of bed. And that's pretty usual, isn't it?
The communal area is a tiny little bit bigger, and it does comply with our requirements over a space of 10. So it isn't about the size, actually. It's about the livability of that space. And we have, in the past, refused applications because bedroom sizes have included areas that, frankly, are corridors. This isn't quite the same case here. The kitchen space can be used a little bit more efficiently because there is a laundry room, the tanks room, that's going to be used for laundry. I'm pretty certain. I said I think it's the least good room, but I still stand by my recommendation.
Okay, so Juliet, unless there is anything else, we take the first motion, which is Councillor Smythe and Candish's. Mary, did you want to come in? No, you're okay. All right. Okay. So, well, let's take the vote on the first motion then, which is to approve the officer's recommendations with the conditions attached. Those in favour, please indicate. And against? Abstentions? Okay, thank you. Okay, all right, we move on to 51 Shadwell Road.
Chair. Right. 51 Shadwell Road, again C3 to 7 bed HMO, two-storey mid-terrace dwelling located on the southern side of Shadwell Road, within a residential area, shown in the street scene. HMO count data for this application, 69 properties within the 50-metre radius, only 3 of which have been identified as being within lawful HMO use. There is, however, 29 Shadwell Road, which was granted permission earlier this year and which doesn't appear in the data count. So that increases the percentage to 5.8%, which again is below the 10 threshold. Existing floor plans, elevations, proposed floor plans. So on the ground floor there are 2 bedrooms, both with ensuite shower, toilet and hand basins, and a communal kitchen diner. 3 bedrooms on the first floor, again all with ensuite facilities, and 2 bedrooms on the second floor in the roof space, again with ensuite facilities. All the rooms are for single occupancy, all over 10 square metres, and a communal space over the 22.5 square metre minimum requirement. External works to be carried out under permitted development and conditioned as such. And a photograph here showing that the permitted development works currently underway, obviously before the building is in any way fit for occupancy. In this case, the issues are set out in the summary is set out on page 79. 7 objections. The issue regarding 29 Shadwell Road has been raised summarised in the SMAT for you. There are deputations to be heard from Councillors Simpson and Strudwick, I believe. No objection from technical consultees. As I say, 7 objections received from members of the public, local and residents in the area for setting out the reasons set out in paragraph 7.2. The main planning consideration, the material planning consideration set out in the report on pages 84 through to 88, and subject to the receipt of a legal agreement from to mitigate the impact of on the Solent SPA in respect of nitrates, then planning permission is recommended to be granted, subject to the conditions set out on pages 89 and 90. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Chair. I feel like a broken record, repeating myself over and over, but yet again I'm here for another Shadwell Road application. To put into context when I say another, in the last year, Shadwell Road has been featured 8 times in this committee, with the surrounding roads also adding an additional 5 HMOs, 13 HMOs in total, and that's excluding Gladys Avenue. We were told we cannot change the 10% within a 50-metre radius to 5%. Be careful what you wish for, as suddenly all the applications will be in the north of the city. Well, nearly 70% of HMO applications have been in the north of the city in the last 6 months. It's already happening. If we combine today with the unknown HMOs in the area, we will now be at the 5% limit in this area. I too, like Councillor Strandwick, am disappointed with the planning officer's decisions to allow such large and inappropriate HMOs be not only next door to each other, but so close to other HMOs. Now, with this application, it will have an even higher impact on parking within Shadwell Road, not to mention the sewage system. This application today is another example of cramming as many people into a 3-bedroom family home as possible, with limited communal space. Even the diagram has only 4 chairs. And of course, adding more potential cars to those 22, a stone throw away 30 doors down. The garden is non-existent. It's now just a path for some bikes. Like the last HMO, I'm sure this would be approved, but in my opinion, I feel like we're failing residents by allowing not only the amount per road, but the size they can be permitted to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. Okay, members, questions? Councillor Vernon-Jackson.
Thank you. Can I ask, the rear bedroom on the first floor has a window looking south. How close is it to the neighbouring property at the south?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor, we will look into that.
My concern is that we often get these where there's a big ground floor extension, but it's a ground floor extension. And therefore there's nobody looking directly into the bedrooms of the houses that are at the back of them. I know there is it's not an exact number, but a figure that we have used in this committee before of the distance from one window looking directly into another window. People don't like the idea that their gardens are being overlooked, but again, we're not allowed to look at that. But we are allowed, as I understand, to look at loss of amenity and privacy if there is a window looking directly in quite close. Now, from memory, it was 21 metres. And I think, looking at Google Maps, that this is considerably closer than 21 metres, and that would be somebody looking directly from one bedroom into the neighbour's bedroom at the south. Now, I think that's a clear breach of our planning policy, and I would therefore say that I think it's PCS 23, and I think therefore that's a real loss of amenity to the neighbours, and therefore I would propose refusal on that ground. If we're not allowed to do that, I would say that bedroom window needs to be obscured so that they can't see, and I think that would mean that you can't use it as a bedroom.
Julia?
Chair, we're considering a change of use here, not any operational development, so it wouldn't be appropriate.
Okay, thank you. So thank you. That confirms me that we need to, I'd be proposing refusal on that ground of loss of amenity.
Chair, I have just advised that we're not looking at operational development here, so we're looking at a change of use.
Yes, and we're also looking at the local plan that says people have got to have decent levels of amenity, and I'm supporting the local plan.
Okay.
If I can just confirm, Chair, the house has the property currently has a lawful use as a C3 dwelling house. Just to clarify, you're talking about the first floor bedroom?
Correct, yes.
Which would be a bedroom in a C3 dwelling house?
Yeah.
So there is no...
So this has already been built?
Yes, the first floor of the house is as existing. It's the window above So what you're looking at there
Yeah,
is the ground floor extension being built under permitted development,
yeah.
and that is the first floor of the existing dwelling house. It's in need of an external redecoration.
So that's not new.
That is not new.
Okay. Yeah, okay. If they're not extending on the first floor, so they've used almost all of the garden already. Okay, thank you. I'm just trying to clutch at straws.
I've got a similar question, because that doesn't look as if that's been, it might be being developed as permitted development, but it doesn't look as if, it looks as if that top bit is further back, whereas the plan shows, oh, it is slightly further back. I'm looking at the plans, the footprint, so there is a little bit of a lean-to below, and it is an existing bedroom. Okay, I've got that. I mean, I was worried about whether there's sufficient, and this is another question, is there sufficient light going into bedroom 4? Because the neighbouring house, and I do wish we were showing neighbouring properties on these plans, it comes up to further up, I believe, on a yes, the question is there sufficient light going into bedroom 4? It's existing as well, I understand.
Yes, so that plan shows the existing layout. And as I mentioned before, the house is a lawful use as a dwelling house. So
I understand that, but we have...
Bedroom 4 does not change.
I understand that, but we have certain obligations to the people for whom this is their sole living space. Is it sufficient light, given where the location of the next door property, is there sufficient light going into that room? I can't tell from the plans.
I'm struggling because that is an existing bedroom.
I understand that too, but when they're in a single-family dwelling house, it's not the only place where people live. We have made exceptions on those grounds. Just want to know whether or not there is sufficient light going into that room, because on the street plan, it shows that light well at that, the bit of the side of the house. If you look at the plan on page 80, we don't even have a view at the back of the house. Perhaps you have a photograph of it on here. That would satisfy me. But that place where that bedroom gets its light is down a little canyon. Yeah. I just want to know whether it actually gets sufficient light into that bedroom, because it's the sole dwelling for somebody. It's a bedroom to bedroom. Please.
Members, we've got 3 microphones on the moment. Juliet, can you turn your...
I think you're pointing at that window there, Councillor.
That's correct. But next door, the building comes out further, so it's in a little canyon.
But it is an existing bedroom.
I understand that, but it's not the only dwelling for people living in the house.
We don't have a daylight sunlight study to
Okay,
ascertain that.
I think that's the answer. Juliet, is there anything you can add? No? Okay. All right.
So we don't know?
Well, I think the answer
I
is
don't
it's
think it's
currently a
relevant.
bedroom, and the light will be the light. Okay, all right. We'll have to make...
I think we have made exception in the past when it's somebody's sole bedroom.
I think okay.
Communal space exceeds the standard, so there is adequate communal space for the proposed number of residents in this HMO.
Thank you. Councillor Sand.
Thank you. I'm just confused about a couple of points. I'm hoping for some clarification here. In paragraph 4.1, the committee decided to turn this into away from a purely Class C3 house in March 2023. How does this application differ to that?
Sorry, Councillor, could you repeat your question?
Thank you. I'm referring to paragraph 4.1, whereby in March 2023, the committee decided to change the use from C3 to C3 and C4, in other words, opening up the principle of it being a HMO. I'm unclear as to what status that has in this, and also whether this is that, and what difference there is between the application we've already approved and this one.
Standard.
Say elsewhere, Edward, it's a change of use, but it appears the change of use has already been agreed by the committee in March 2023.
was for a C3 to C4. This is for a C4 to 7 bed, so sui generis HMO.
John, do you want to come in?
Allows up to 6. This is...
No. So no, the application says change of use from a dwelling house, class C3, to a 7-bed, 7-person HMO. And that's right at the top. So forgive me, I'm sorry, Edward, you're probably very clear. I'm just a bit confused as to what the status of the previous application actually is and what material changes exist. So, okay, so it's to more people. Is that correct?
Is it that it's not been implemented? Is that?
I ain't got a clue.
Well, that may be the answer to your question.
If that's a clue, that's a clue.
Okay, right, can we get back on
That's
track?
fine, okay, right, so it is different. Okay, the second one is the comments of the highway engineer in paragraph, forgive me, 6.2, talks about the words hunting for parking spaces, which is an issue that that's come up in many a highways engineer's comments on this. But the following sentence is a bit different. It says, this could justify a reason for refusal, and consequently you should give this due weight in your determination of the planning application. I'm reading from your thoughts, Edward, that actually providing the cycle storage, provided it's all implemented prior to occupation, overcomes that reason for refusal. Am I correct?
That was a comment made for the case officer to consider in weighing this scheme up in the balance. And indeed, as explained in paragraph 823, it talks about the highlights an issue with the lack of off-street parking, but as it's not considered to be sort of an appeal-winning issue in a sense. The parking SPD requires two spaces for a 4-bed HMO or above, and that was based on census data, and there's no empirical evidence to the contrary, and therefore it's officers' view that it's unreasonable to refuse applications on lack of parking.
Those are my questions, Chris.
Thank you, Darren. Councillor Smith.
Chair, it was just to help my understanding. On this proposed elevation, you've got a conservatory there, but when we were talking back, Councillor Vernon Jackson was saying about the building, we've got a single under permitted development coming out. I need to understand that a little bit, because it looked like a single an extension coming out under permitted development. Understand that. Is there a conservatory going on top of that? In which case there would be a building above it going on that picture you've just had there. So there's another floor to go above that. Am I reading that wrong? Because you've got the main building and then a conservatory on the bottom right corner there. And then you've got a building going up above it. So just help my understanding, because I don't where's the conservatory? Because on that it permitted, on top of that proposed development, there's a conservatory to go onto it as well. Can you help my understanding of that? Go back to the picture, if you may, with the window. And Judith said about the side, down the side, it looks like there's a building to go above, another room to go above it, and the floor plan sort of, I just need you to help my understanding there. You've got a building. I mean, I don't know a bit about building, but you've got.
So that's existing. We're looking at the side elevation here.
Yep.
I want to see the picture with the.
Yeah, well, I just see on the proposed, there's a conservatory to go on top of that. Are you telling me that extension that's jabbing out, the photo that Gerald was talking about, is the conservatory? In which case, I understand that, but it's not built like that. There's a conservatory to go on there, and then there's something. But if that isn't, and that's the building, then there's another building to go. There's an elevation to go onto that in front of it. In which case, that brings Gerald's point back into action about view. Because there's another story from what I was seeing, the way it's been built. That's not a conservatory.
I think it's not actually a conservatory, it's an extension to the kitchen.
But it's not been drawn like that. It's not been.
Yeah, it's a kitchen extension.
So that's showing a lean-to roof there,
Yep.
and then there's a flat roof.
Yeah, but that's on the third. That's up to the third.
Sorry, I beg your
you're talking
pardon,
about
yeah.
bedroom
No,
5.
yeah,
There's a
well,
two-story extension.
Yeah.
There's
another
a two-story
floor.
extension there. There's another floor to go on it, in my opinion, unless I'm.
That's the existing ground and first floor.
Yep.
That's existing. And that's proposed. And there is no change in the depth of the building from, if you take the reference point as being the two-storey.
So,
Gerald, is this a helpful addition to the...
I hope my interventions are always helpful, Chairman.
I'm just struggling a bit because the...
I don't think there's any...
Gerald, jump in.
Okay, so so I've looked at the aerial view on Google Map, and clearly the ground floor has got an extension building into the garden for the communal space. The question is, and the bit at the bottom is the little lean-to bit, or whatever they're going to be called, and in our plan it's got a sofa and a little coffee table in front of it. The question is, the bedroom above it is an extension, not current, not the original building. Now the question is are they allowed to do that under permitted development? Because it doesn't look as if that's already been built, because it's that picture with the grotty bit of a house which hasn't been painted is old, but that doesn't fit the plan. So there is, what they're saying here is existing, is not on those plans is not existing, but it's what they're going to be doing, probably as permitted development. So this bottom bedroom, bedroom 5, will be built probably with permitted development, but they've come to us for planning permission, and I think it is too close to be looking directly from that window directly into somebody else's bedroom window at number 36 Oriel Road. So I think that's either we have to say that's obscured glass, which we do in other things when we have bathrooms and things looking directly in and windows looking in, or we say you cannot use that because it is too close to number 36 Oriel and the other 38 and 34, and you'll be looking directly into somebody's bedroom at closer than the 21 metres. Now, I don't know, Edward, have we been able to get a measuring stick to see the distance between window and window?
John, did you want
to help on this? If this is as existing, then although it's very faintly drawn, the right elevation on the bottom right of this existing elevations does show the first floor. It's just the same as my own house, actually, which has got the two-storey extension built way back, and then a little lean-to to extend the kitchen on the ground floor. So if that's the case, but that photograph we've got is very misleading, and I think we should look at that again to illustrate what Councillor Van Jackson said.
Thank you, Chair. That's my point, really, is that it looks like the jab, the first two floors, the ground floor and the first bit's been has been knocked down, rebuilt to first floor level, and bedroom 5 is going above that and being rebuilt, and then there's a conservatory to go in front of that. That's my reading of it, and then you've got a third floor, obviously, which is something different. But or you've got a conservatory just to go on the back of that bit, and that photo doesn't look right. The plan doesn't.
Edward, if you could pop your...
It looks like there needs to be another floor on top of that jab. They've knocked it back, rebuilt to the first floor. They've got another floor to go on, which will be bedroom 5, and then they've got a conservatory to go in front of it. That's my reading of the plan as you're showing it on the screen.
Edward, could you pop your microphone on?
That's existing layout. So you'd agree there's a first floor bedroom. No, that's existing. This is the existing floor plan. I think the photograph is not helpful. That is an existing bedroom. So that window, so that first floor window on that, going back to that plan, that window there, in my understanding, is that window there. So there's no first floor extension proposed.
In which case then, sorry if I can just cut across then, that extension built is not a conservatory, or is that meant to be the conservatory now?
Chair, paragraph 3.3 states that the permitted development works are going to be a rear dormer and roof light to the front roof slopes. There's no mention of any other permitted developments being done.
My question I'm asking, is that then the conservatory? Because that doesn't look like a conservatory. Or anything like the plan shows it as a conservatory. If that's what you're saying, I'll take what you're saying, that's a double story, or it's the blue bit at the top. But then that is not a conservatory, in my humble opinion.
Could I suggest we go for a site visit?
Well, look, we're not content, are we, with this? So, Edward, is there anything you
I think
could
it's
helpfully help us with? Because we need to make some progress, I think, with it.
Because of
Have that photograph, then what's being described in my mind is satisfactory. That photograph, which I did draw the committee's attention to earlier, is completely misleading because as I say, I know this sort of house intimately because my house is like this.
Right, okay, Darren.
And,
To speed this along, can I second Gerald's suggestion of a deferral of this decision pending a site visit?
Well, you wanted to refuse earlier.
No, I think actually to go and have a look at it would be really sensible.
I think, and this is not down to planning colleagues, this is the second time today, we can only work on the evidence before us. If we are not happy or we have problems with the evidence before us, it's not down to the developer, it's not down to the planning team, it's just to make sure that we are confident about the evidence. We've heard from Councillor Simpson the boiling anger that exists within that. I have to say, Russell, without personalising it, which I think is very, very helpful, unlike your other parties who've chosen to personalise things. Therefore, we have to make sure if we're taking these decisions, they have to be right. And I would second Councillor Vernon Jackson's suggestion of a deferral for a site visit.
Okay, right. Well, it helps us to make some progress. Is there anything else then? No? Okay, right. The motion for us is to defer and arrange a site visit. Those in favour, please indicate.
That was unanimous.
well, they probably are allowed to. That's
It was the picture what done
basically
it.
the things. It's not the same building. It's not the same building.
consistent with the...
No, that's the point. That's all I was understanding.
Yeah.
All right, okay. We move on. Twyford Avenue. Judith, your microphone's on. Just pop that off. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Right, 124 Twyford Avenue. This is change of use from a C3 dwelling house to an 8-bed, 8-person HMO. A 2-storey mid-terrace dwelling located on the eastern side of Twyford Avenue, shown on screen in front of you, near to the junction with Lower Derby Road. This property entrance door is straight onto the footway on Twyford Avenue. It benefits from a a rear garden, residential character area. In street scene, that's the property there with the for sale sign attached to it. It's a slightly different character to its immediate neighbour. So as described, it's an application for an 8-person, 8-bed HMO, all rooms single occupancy. At the ground floor, 2 bedrooms. Do I have plans? Yes, so that's the existing layout. Existing elevations, that's the proposed layout. So 2 bedrooms at ground floor level, both with ensuite facilities. A further 3 bedrooms at first floor level, all with ensuite facilities. And a further 3 bedrooms at second floor with ensuite facilities. Communal kitchen dining room and a shared WC on the ground floor. Kitchen dining room extending to the rear. The applicant has again stated that all works to extend the property will be undertaken under permitted development or prior approval. These will include a single-storey rear extension, which already has prior approval, I'm advised, a rear dormer and roof lights to the front roof slope, and they are not included and nor should they be considered as part of this application. With regard to the HMO count data, if we just go back to that slide, so 72 properties within a 50-metre radius, 2 of which have been identified as lawful HMOs. Currently 2.8%. This proposal would increase that to 4.2%, and a full check has been carried out and no additional HMOs have been found. So existing floor plans, proposed floor plans, and some photographs from the rear of the property. Waste storage facilities will be maintained within the rear of the garden. This application has attracted 7 objections for the reason setting out the concerns in paragraph 1.2. Again, Highways engineer comments similar to the previous application, but as previously advised, parking is not generally a reason for refusal that can be defended successfully at appeal. There is secure cycle storage within the rear garden to be provided. The material planning considerations are set out in the report, pages 96 through to 101. As you can see from the table on page 98, all rooms comply with or exceed standard. And the recommendation is subject again to the receipt of a legal agreement to mitigate nitrates and recreational disturbance on the SPA to grant conditional planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you. No deputation. So, members, any questions? Judith.
Under paragraph 4.1, it says that there's going to be the construction of a rear extension and prior approval is not required. Is that because it's permitted development? Okay. The second question is probably easy to answer, but there's a kind of mysterious black line running from the front door to the back of the property. What is it? Should it be there?
I don't know what that is, Councillor. It's something that's on the architect's drawings. It looks worse in having been reproduced in your agenda than it does on the plan I'm looking at on my colleague's laptop, which is the one that was submitted. It is of no relevance to the determination of this application as far as I can make out.
Sometimes such lines are used to indicate a lower roof line, a ceiling line or something like that.
I think if anything it's a section line, but it's not something that's been followed through. I think it's, yes, so looking at the actual plan submitted by Applecore on this application, there is, and it's not in the report nor in my presentation unfortunately, but there is what
Edward, if you could get a little closer to the mic.
There is something called a planning section cross-section through the building, and I think that's what that black line you're referring to is just indicative of where the section line was taken. But it is of no relevance to the determination of the application.
Does that answer your question, James?
Yeah,
Happy
I
with that?
think though the plans should be checked so that they,
Yeah.
they
it's
don't
good, it was
indicate something that we would otherwise have missed.
a good spot. Darren.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm a bit confused again. I do apologise for this. You say it's for 8 bedrooms and 8 people. Yet in paragraph 3.1, you talk about it being for 7 people. In paragraph 8.5, you talk about it for 7 people. And in paragraph 8.15, you also talk about it for 7 people. Now, clearly there are 8 bedrooms here, but why has an incorrect number gone in, and if so, which one is it? Because you talk about a licence for up to 7 people, specifically for HMOs here. And I'm a bit confused as to, it's 8 bedrooms, but too often you talk about 7 people. Which one is it, Edward?
I think that is just a drafting error in the officer report, unfortunately, Councillor, for which I apologise. It is clearly an 8-bedroom, 8-person HMO.
So, clearly,
I have no reason to doubt what the officer says, but I mean, it might. I understand the intense pressure that all of us is under, but it does help just to make sure it's consistent throughout. With regards to the parking permits, I appreciate that the FG zone is at 99% capacity. How many permits would the house, as it currently stands, get? Because it'll get 2 under a HMO. Am I correct in this? And if I am, how many would it currently have as a family house? Would it be more or less? And if you don't know, please say so.
Don't know is a short answer.
Those are my questions, Chris.
Thanks, Darren. Comments, members?
So I've got another question, please. Where's the proposed... Oh, yes, I see. I've just worked out how you get in there. Couldn't. Thank you. So sorry.
Okay, any comments, members? I mean, it's compliant for an 8-bed, 8-person. Oh, Judith, could you pop your microphone? Sorry. 8-bed, 8-person HMO. Peter, do you want to comment?
Chair, all I was going to say was your comment as well. The policy is compliant.
Okay. Yeah.
Or the application is compliant now. We've clarified it's 8 and 8, i.e. we could rehearse the same arguments around pressure on infrastructure, etc. But the reality is, I think this is I will be recommending to...
You're moving?
I'm moving.
You're moving?
I will
John, you're
second, Chair.
seconding? Okay, all right. Okay, I think we're probably there. Members, those in favour, please indicate. Against? Okay.
Planning permission is therefore granted.
Okay, Margate Road, thank you.
Chair, 68 Margate Road, again, change of use from C4 to so it is already an HMO, it's already up to 6 people HMO to a 7-bed, 7-person HMO. Located on the south side of Margate Road, shown on the screen in front of you. Plans, ground floor plan showing bin storage at the front of the property and cycle store at the rear. That's the property in street scene. With regard to the HMO data count, it is already an existing HMO, so in a sense this isn't relevant. For reference, within the 50-metre radius, there are 47 HMOs within out of 99 properties, which results in a percentage of 47.5%, and of course that percentage doesn't change because this property is already an HMO. I understand a licence is being applied for. The floor plans are shown thus. Existing and proposed. So the lounge has been changed into a bedroom and the utility room into an ensuite. All rooms meet the required standards and set out in the SPD, and there will be bike storage in the rear garden. This is some photographs of the property as it currently is. So the planning considerations in this case, it's before committee because it was at the request of Councillor Vernon Jackson. Planning history set out in paragraph 1.6. Consultations, private sector housing, advising that the property will need to be licensed. One letter of objection received. Planning consideration set out on pages 104 through to 108. The table on page 105, overlapping onto page 106, apologies for that, demonstrates that all rooms meet the required standard. And the recommendation, because the increase in one bedroom is not considered by officers to constitute a material consideration, is that planning permission is not required, but if it is required, then it is recommended unconditionally. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. Carry on.
68 Margate Road. As you know, it's a change of use from Class C4 HMO to a 7-person sui generis house in multiple occupation. The required communal area of 7 persons and all bedrooms meet the 10 square metres is 22.5, and this property provides 31 square metres of communal area, which exceeds that requirement, also with a tank area / laundry on the second floor. The owner of this property has a large number of student properties in Portsmouth area, and he employs local people to manage the property portfolio, and any issues, if they arise, are dealt with promptly, and any maintenance issues are quickly dealt with. This application is fully compliant with policy, and I ask you to fully support this recommendation for approval today. I just wanted to pick up on a couple of comments that have been made about hanging my head in shame. So some of the local councillors have very biased views towards HMOs. Again, I've invited you all to come and see some of our finished HMOs. Not all of you have replied, some of you have. Councillor Swan personally declined to come and see a finished HMO. So I feel if you want the strong biased views, that's fine, but I think you all should be prepared to see it from the other side. My daughter lives in a HMO and she couldn't afford to live it independently if she didn't live in one of these HMOs. Chris Outwell has been to one of our HMOs, perfectly finished. This narrow room that you all discussed this morning was the exact same similar room that you saw at Magdala Road. So zoned with the bed lengthways at the end of the room, so no narrowness, you can get in from the side. Then a separate area for desks, like a sort of zoned off, and it works perfectly. In fact, that's one of the nicest rooms when it's finished because there's different zoned areas to that room. Every thought is given to how the tenant experience is going to be at the end. We give our tenants gifts for Christmas. We're very mindful of neighbours. I'd love for you to come and see one and knock on the neighbours' doors, and they'll all tell you that it wasn't what they expected. That's all I wanted to say, really. Thank you. Bye.
And it's regretful that the person given the deputation felt that they wanted to use that particular set of words, because you're doing your job, and yeah, you're right. I've been. They're good. I've been to one of, as you said, I've been to one of your HMOs, and I would encourage members to do likewise. I'd also encourage you, I think we've spoken about it, to have maybe a public event to invite people to go and have a look. But yeah.
I think it's unfortunate to tar the whole committee with the same brush. I was merely making the point about that area room that we need to see a drawing of the bed in there before we can be satisfied, which I then was.
No, absolutely. Look, we make these difficult decisions and we do it to the best of our abilities, but I think that was particularly hurtful, the comments made by the member of the public. Darren, before we make progress with the application.
Chair, just a couple of things. Firstly, we need to determine whether this needs planning permission or... Oh, that's good, that's good. I'm happy to offer a form of words because I believe it does.
Okay. Well, let me ask the question.
Okay.
Do we believe this application requires planning permission? Well, there you go. We've got a plethora of people who... Yes.
We have to give reasons, okay. and I think this application is also quite pertinent to do it as well. I have down that in terms of the increase in bedrooms, the potential impact on residential amenity, nitrates, the potential impact on an already saturated parking zone, and the comments of private sector housing with regards to the 2.3 metres across 75%, which I'm sure colleagues will improve in terms of words. I believe that this should be determined by a planning committee.
Thank you, Darren. Members, do you agree? Those in favour, please indicate. Oh, that's a very good question. Judith is seconding.
I think we should add that this is an area of exceptional density of HMOs at 47%, and I'm particularly concerned about that we look at this properly, given the hugely high density. People in the north would be should note the density that people are living with and have lived with for many decades in the south of the city.
Okay.
And hence why we haven't got new applications coming up.
You're
Sorry,
happy to
Chair, can
assume that?
I don't know if the planning officer wants to come back on that point. No? Oh, can I say something? It's already an existing HMO, so...
Okay. Well, I think we, the intensity of the use of the accommodation, I think, is...
I'm happy to subsume that in order to move things along.
Okay. All right. Okay. Councillor Shah, did you want to...
Yeah, just I wanted to say a small point to add. Obviously, HMOs are more than what we can accept. And obviously, when you add one person on each HMO, which is, I think they said 47%. So how many HMOs, when you get these, each and every HMO will have one. So how many people will we be adding, and to make them even few more houses, adding more houses to the...
Well, according to the inspectors, we can just keep going forever. Yes, yeah, the local plan will come. But at this particular application, so, look, we've got a motion that this requires planning permission. Proposed, seconded, Peter? Okay, all right, okay. Please indicate if you agree. Okay. Is that okay, Juliet?
Yes, that was unanimous.
Okay, members, this does require planning permission. Questions? Darren.
Just one, Chris. It's with regards to comments of private sector housing and paragraph 5.8 of the report. Edward, the planning team says the second floor accommodation would have 2.3 metres head height for at least 75% of the floor space. That is the concern of private sector housing. Is that something that is part of the existing application, or would it need to be added as a condition?
I understand that there are no changes to the physical format of the house, so that is as existing.
Sorry, I'm a bit less intelligent than you, Edward. I'm assuming the answer to my question is therefore yes.
I know I have a brain like a sieve at the moment. Could you just repeat your question?
Paragraph 5.8.
Yeah.
Which comes from the comments of the private sector housing team, which want a specific head height for a specific percentage of floor space.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
is that actually part of the application, or would it have to be added as a condition?
No, the officer is confirming there that there is 2.3 metres head height for at least 75% of the accommodation.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask a similar question about that. Does the livable area of the room add up to what we see in the table on page 105? Because I think we're normally talking about something that's not 2.3 metres head height. We're talking about something less. Is there, what I'm trying to say, I'll say it again, over 10 metres squared of allowable head height in that room? I mean, 2.3 metres isn't the figure that we normally talk about, I don't think. We normally think, I think we talk about a metre. Well, more than that, it must be.
There is a dotted line shown across the front of the second floor. If we can go back to the...
Yes, that's what I'm looking for. I don't think... 1.5 metres.
It's 1.5 metres.
And that's normally the figure we use to measure whether the rest of the room is habitable. Isn't that right?
So the licensing is requirement is to 2.3. The planning requirement is about
Edward,
1.5.
sorry, just for Jane's benefit, who's trying to hear, if you could get a little closer to the microphone so Jane can
I'll get used to this over time. So the licensing requirement is for 2.3 metres head height, which is satisfied. The planning requirement is for headroom over 1.5, hence that dotted line on the plan.
I'm not sure why we've got what benefit of paragraph 5.8 at all. It does confuse us. Is 75% of the floor space at 2.3 head height? Where's the line showing where that is? If it's important.
There is. Yes, unfortunately there's no section drawing on the presentation or in the report, but there is the section drawing provided with the application which demonstrates that headroom at second floor level is 2.3.
Edward, we have to send you on a microphone training course.
You're going to have to bring that PC closer to you because I can't hear it.
We need to be able to minute things properly.
So the section drawing submitted with the application shows headroom at second floor level to be 2.3 metres for the majority of the accommodation other than that indicated below the 1.5 metre dash line on the plan on page 106. Headroom at first floor level is 2.32 metres and at ground floor level is at 2.65 metres.
So at bedroom 1 on the second floor, the pecked line leaves you with 11.48 square metres.
Yes,
as we normally see.
That's right.
And this is a new piece of information coming in that we don't normally look at. So
Indeed.
that seems okay.
Yeah.
I think the line will be the 1.5, won't it? And then the windows will be on a slant, so you will get that will be a graduating bit for those windows. Those are Veluxes, so that will be on a graduating. So the rest of that room will be at full 2.3.
Yeah.
But from those windows down, that'll be a graduating because obviously it's going down towards that 1.5 line.
Okay, Judith, I could ask you to turn your microphone off, please. Oh, okay, any comments, members? I think I shall move the officer's recommendation to Juliet. Oh, Juliet.
The officer's recommendation is to grant unconditional planning permission, so you'll need to do the usual wording. Let me just find some for you.
Could you use your microphone, Jim?
I'd like to propose that we agree this to give this permission subject to the imposition of conditions requiring the implementation of the additional occupancy within a 3-year period that the development be carried out in accordance with the plans submitted, and requiring that an increased occupancy shouldn't occur until an appropriate scheme of mitigation is submitted and approved to mitigate any impact on the Solent Special Protection Area. And also a condition, if it's not in anywhere else, that there are cycle spaces available. There's a cycle parking. It says so, metal bikes.
It's already...
Cycle parking is proposed, so that
Yes,
would
it is.
fall under the approved plans condition.
It's in the approved plan, so thank you very much,
Okay.
Chair.
All right, okay.
So there'd be a legal agreement for the SPA, the nitrates and bird aware contributions.
Yes, please.
Okay. With those conditions, Darren?
I have no problem with those, but I wanted to add one thing, which is not specifically related to this, which is that I wanted to propose that the chair of this committee has the ability to stop and hold deputations which include personal attacks. We, as a council, led by my colleague Leonie Oliver and the independent councillor Strudwick, but agreed by all of us, put forward agreed proposals for something called debate, not hate, because of personal attacks that have been given on some, mainly female, colleagues. And I think we should be, this should apply to people within our orbit who include other people who may make deputations, because personal attacks do not forward anything. I'm happy to take on board the notion, Councillor Swan in particular's politicisation of everything. I'm more than happy to talk about how government changes to permitted development rules have made life worse for people. I'm more than happy to talk about the additional licensing scheme, which landlords believe will lose HMO rooms. I'm more than happy to discuss that. But I think the personalisation of everything is completely wrong. And as Carrie-Anne may well know, I live in a HMO, so I will go back to one at the end of this. But I feel very, very unhappy about the personalisation of what is a really sensitive and controversial issue. It will only make matters worse.
Well, okay, we've sort of interrupted the flow of this one, but it's okay. Apologies, I didn't stop the deputation being heard. You know, my starting point is I want to hear what people have got to say, and my hope is that people just don't go there, but unfortunately they do on occasion. So, okay, thank you, Darren. Back to the application, though. Can we try and get to the end of today's business? So we've got the wording. You're happy. Who proposed? You're proposing? Well, you came up with the wording. Do you want to propose?
I'll propose.
Proposed, seconded by Councillor Smith. Okay, is there anything else, members? Okay, right, please indicate if you're in favour of the motion to grant the planning permission with the conditions we've just established. Favour? Okay, anybody against? And there are no abstentions.
Planning permission is therefore granted.
Okay, I think that is the end of today's business. Thank you all for your contributions, and I'll close the meeting at 13:07, and I shall see you here in 3 weeks' time for our last Planning Committee meeting